Hey everyone, and welcome to my beginner guide for structured PvP in Guild Wars 2. Whether you're new to the game or an existing player venturing into Conquest for the first time, this video will give you the best possible start to your PvP journey. At the end of this guide, you'll have a better understanding of how the game mode works, the different roles you can play, how to set up your character build, along with some examples, and more. Popping up on screen now is a list of all the topics that are going to be covered, along with the timestamps for each one. And if you are brand new, I would recommend watching in order so you don't miss anything important. We're going to start off with key features. These are elements of PvP in Guild Wars 2 that make the game mode more balanced and accessible compared to PvP in other MMOs. And first up is how this game equalizes PvP. Whereas other games may have a never-ending gear treadmill that takes years of grinding to achieve a power level equal to veteran players, Guild Wars 2 has a truly equalized gear system. Stats are standardized, which means that new players stepping into PvP for the first time can immediately fight on an even playing field with someone that has been playing the game since release. Winning in PvP depends on how well you know your class in different matchups, rather than how long you spent farming for gear. This means that practice is rewarded, and the time you spend honing your skills will result in noticeable increases in your ability to win matches and earn better rewards. Next up is the fluid and skill-based combat. Guild Wars 2 has one of the most well-designed and dynamic combat systems out of any MMO. Skills have distinct animations, instant cast skills and animation locks are far and few between, and every class has multiple builds that can be played comfortably at high ratings. As you get more experience and learn animations, you will be able to react accordingly to the skills your enemies are using. This results in a very robust and impactful style of combat, where you and your opponents can use mind games, bait defensive cooldowns, and punish mistakes. If you are better than your competition, it is not uncommon to consistently be able to win outnumbered fights and manage multiple opponents at a time. And finally, we arrive on progression. PvP in Guild Wars 2 is extremely lucrative, and playing matches will line your pockets with gold. This is the primary currency, which you can use to purchase everything from cosmetics or account upgrades on the cash shop to the weapons you wield. And you can even level through PvP. Completing reward tracks will grant you tomes of knowledge, which you can use to level your characters all the way up to max. Next up, we have the primary game mode for structured PvP in Guild Wars 2, 5 vs 5 Conquest. Here, you and 4 other players in your team must fight the enemy for control over 3 objectives known as capture nodes. The mastery of your class and decision making will be tested as you vie to be the first team to reach 500 points. There are 9 different maps to fight over, each with their own unique layouts and special mechanics. For example, on Battle of Kylo, each team has access to their own trebuchet that they can use to destroy structures and rain fiery death upon the enemy. While on Legacy of the Foefire, if you kill the enemy lord in their base, you'll earn 150 points for your team. Popping up on screen now is a list of all the special mechanics for each map. Feel free to screenshot it or click the PDF in the description below if you'd like to reference it in the future. I would recommend familiarizing yourself with the different map mechanics. Learning when to use or fight over them can influence whether you win or lose your matches in the future. At the end of each 5v5 ranked season, there are alternating ranked 2v2 and 3v3 off seasons, as well as daily and monthly automated tournaments that teams of 5 can compete in for even better rewards and prestigious titles. If you like dueling, there is a free-for-all arena in the heart of the mists, as well as private servers that you can use to 1v1 your friends or guildmates. And now I'll show you how to get started. If you follow these steps, you'll be able to go from making a new character to hopping into your first PvP match in less than 5 minutes. The barrier to entry is almost non-existent, and PvP is both quick and easy to get into. There's no need to level your character to 80, and if you're brand new, you can PvP as early as level 3. So, after making your character and finishing the tutorial, slay a few mobs to reach level 3. Afterwards, click on the double sword icon in the top left of your screen and click enter the PvP lobby. This will bring you into the heart of the mists, a hub where PvP players gather to practice on golems, join the free-for-all arena, and meet up with their friends. As soon as you enter, you can visit the market waypoint in the top left of your minimap and talk to the weapons vendor to pick up some cheap weapons. In the PvP lobby, all of your weapon skills, utilities, and trait lines will be completely unlocked, making it a fantastic way to test out all of the different classes without having to go through the leveling process. However, to play the elite specializations, you will still need to purchase the expansions. After you've gotten all sorted out, you can jump right into a match by clicking the double sword icon again, where you can queue up for unranked and eventually ranked after you reach PvP level 20. Guild Wars 2 has 3 main roles in PvP. You have Duelists, Teamfighters, and Roamers. Duelists are otherwise known as 1v1ers or side noders. Their goal is to win 1v1s, survive the gank by the enemy roamer, and repush the 1v1 after the enemy roamer leaves. Teamfighters can further be broken down into supports and damage dealers. Supports use their healing skills and buffs to augment the damage and survivability of their teammates. They are not tanks, and you should still try to avoid taking unnecessary damage. Damage dealers can put out a lot of AoE or single target spike damage to quickly kill enemy players. They may also have ways to mitigate incoming damage to their team or use crowd control skills to alleviate pressure from their teammates. And finally are the roamers. These are high damage, high mobility builds whose primary goals are to quickly outnumber the enemy team through fast rotations around the map. They neutralize enemy controlled capture nodes and pick up kills in teamfights when possible. Builds are very easy and quick to set up. To make your builds, you can click on the helmet icon at the top middle of your screen. Here you can equip an amulet, ruin, and sigils. Amulets and ruins will augment your stats, while your sigils can have different effects ranging from increased condition duration to on-swap or on-interrupt effects. The game gives you most of these for free, so you don't need to worry about spending gold to unlock them unless you want more niche options later on. Next, you can click the second tab on the left to pull up the traits window. Here you can select 3 trait lines. If you have the expansions, you can equip them in the lowest slot. When all is said and done, you can equip your weapons, healing, utility, and elite skills, and congratulations, you'll have your very first PvP build. Alright, next up are starter core builds. These are recommended plus others. I've also divided these into their respective roles. For Duelists, you have Minion Core Necromancer, Strength Core Warrior, Marksmanship Core Ranger. For Teamfighters, you have Support Core Guardian, and your Roamers, Condi Core Thief, and Power Core Mesmer. And the links to all of these builds are going to be in the description down below. They'll take you to the build editor, where you can see them in more detail and transfer them to your characters in-game. If you want to see a regularly updated comprehensive list containing all of the meta expansion builds, you can stop by my stream at twitch.tv/blindside_TV and use the !builds command in chat to pull that up. Quick disclaimer before getting into these builds, if you do not have the expansions, I would advise you to stay away from Core Elementalist and Engineer for PvP. They aren't that strong at the moment, your time will be better spent learning other builds. However, both of these classes have exceptionally powerful elite specializations that are commonly used in high rankings of tournament play. Alright, and we arrive on scoring and map mechanics. Capture points take 15 seconds to capture, 5 seconds to neutralize, and for every second it remains captured, you'll earn 1 point for your team. Killing enemy players will add 5 points to your team's score, and certain maps have additional mechanics, all of which will be located in the PDF down below. This section is going to cover the basic mechanics and terminology you need to know before hopping into your first match. Starting off with the most important mechanic is your weapon swap. The default keybind is tilde on your keyboard. Every class except for engineers and elementalists have the ability to swap between 2 weapon sets, with the cooldown increasing to 10 seconds while in combat. Now let's move on to your endurance bar. Every class has a default of 2 dodges on their endurance bar, with a max endurance cap of 100. Each dodge consumes 50 endurance and gives you 3/4 of a second of evasion during the animation. You can use this to avoid incoming attacks. Each dodge takes 10 seconds to fully recharge, but you can increase the regeneration speed through boons like Vigor or weapon sigils like the Sigil of Energy. Next is the 2-part combo system, consisting of combo fields and combo finishers. This system is an important part of combat. There are various types of finishers tied to skills. These include Blast, Leap, Projectile, and Whirl. I've included the chart on screen here. When used in different fields, they can produce a range of different effects. And we arrive on Downstate. In Guild Wars 2, the fight isn't over until you're fully dead. When you lose all of your health, you go into Downstate, where your character can use their profession's Downstate skills in a last-ditch effort to survive. A downed player can be finished in 3 ways. You can either cleave the body with damage, let their health automatically decay, or by interacting with the downed body to execute the stomp animation. When you stop, the downed player will immediately be slain when the channel finishes. There are also resurrect and rally mechanics. An ally can revive their teammate by interacting with their downed body. It'll take some time, but if their health bar fully tops up while in down state, they'll hop right back on their feet. As for the rally mechanic, if you fully kill an enemy in down state, any down teammates that recently hit them will immediately be able to fight again. Next up are damage types: direct and condition. Direct damage comes from the power damage your skills do, while conditions are damage over time and can be applied in various ways. There are several types of control effects. CCs can control movement, damage, or both, and are generally categorized into hard and soft CCs. Hard CCs usually prevent skill usage and movement, while soft CCs may only affect one or the other. On screen now are the hard and soft CCs you'll have access to, along with their effects. Damage reduction also corresponds to its respective damage type. There are resistances to power as well as condition damage, and including these in your build are crucial to surviving enemy attacks. For example, if you have a lot of conditions on you and your health is ticking down, you can remove them through the use of a Condi cleanse, as shown on screen here. Invulnerability skills make you immune to all damage for their duration. Barrier is a temporary yellow health shield that soaks up incoming damage. It caps out at 50% of your max health and begins to rapidly decay after 5 seconds, while unblockable attacks go through blocks and projectile denial. And finally, stealth renders players invisible. They can still take damage, but won't reveal themselves until the duration expires. They attack enemies while in stealth or are revealed through an enemy skill. Boons and Conditions are Guild Wars 2's version of buffs and debuffs. Boons have a variety of helpful effects. Certain ones stack in duration, while some stack in intensity. They can also be corrupted, which turns a boon into its corresponding condition, and vice versa. On screen now are all of the boons and conditions, as well as their effects. Knowing how to manage these is an important part of combat in Guild Wars 2. So now I'm going to go over the basic opening splits and rotations you'll need to know to play Conquest. These are extremely important to learn. The opening split sets up momentum that can carry through to the rest of the game, while proper rotations will help you maintain the lead or close a point gap. Since this is the beginner section, I will give a brief overview of the two, and while the intermediate section will cover these in more detail after you get more experience in PvP. The most common opening split you'll see is 1-4-0. You play this with a traditional comp of 1 Duelist, 3 Teamfighters, and 1 Roamer. This split means your side noder goes to the capture node closest to your home base, while the other 4 go to contest the middle capture node. There are other opening splits, such as 1-3-1, 1-0-4, and 2-3-0. You want to play 1-3-1 if your team has 2 side noders. 1 will capture home at the start of the match, 3 go to contest mid, and the other side noder pushes far to prevent the enemy side noder from capturing their home node at the start of the match. 1-0-4 is the most aggressive opening split. You want to play this if you have a high damage, high mobility, and squishy team comp. If your team consists of several roamers, you can use this opening split to try and quickly kill the enemy side noder at the start of the match and force a snowball early on. In order to successfully execute this split, your team must stack stealth before crossing into line of sight of mid or far. The element of surprise is crucial to this strategy, and stealth will keep the enemy guessing the group's location. Finally, the last beginner split is 2-3-0. This is the safest split. You want to use the strategy if the enemy has a roamer comp and you think there's a chance of them going for an aggressive 1-0-4 opening split. In this strategy, your side noder heads home, while your team's roamer escorts him and stays nearby. The rest of the team fight heads mid. If you don't see the enemy contesting the mid node at the start of the match, they are likely pushing your home node, and the roamer can help your side noder survive this gank. And last are the rotations. Moving between nodes is an important part of winning in Conquest. There are very few times you'll want to AFK on a single capture node. In fact, doing so can give the enemy team a massive advantage. Rotations can get pretty complicated, so I'll try to give you guys the simplest rotation strategy that can be applied to any role. If you win a fight, immediately move on to the next capture node. If you're losing a fight, try to disengage and regroup towards your team. Or if you're a roamer, split off and decap an enemy node. And if your whole team wipes, wait for respawns, regroup in base, and push your home node together as a group of 5. Now let's talk about the settings and keybinds I recommend using. On screen now are all of the general options I have set up for PvP. I would highly recommend copying them exactly as I have them. Trust me, it will make your PvP experience way easier. The only optional ones would be camera rotation speed and horizontal/vertical positions, the type of ground targeting you want, team colors, and standard models. If you enable standard models, everyone will turn into a human with basic armor. The only difference races make in PvP are animation sizes, so if you have a hard time seeing what Asuras are using, I would recommend turning this option on. It might be easier to learn PvP this way, and keep in mind you can always turn it off when you get more comfortable fighting or if you prefer looking at everyone's armor. I would also advise to turn motion blur power all the way down in your graphics options, and have the character model limit set to at least medium for SPVP. And finally, let's talk about keybinds. The most important thing is to choose keybinds that are comfortable and easy for you to reach. Now, I've used the same keybind since release and have never felt the need to use an MMO mouse. If you want my keybinds, everything is default except for my utilities. Starting with the heal and working your way to the elite, they are as follows. Caps Lock, Q, E, C, X, and F5 is Z. These next keybinds are mandatory. Even if you don't utilize them that much at the start, they are extremely important for movement and combat down the road. These keybinds are about face under movement, and stow and draw weapons under miscellaneous. Learning how to use about face properly will give you exceptional movement and camera control, and stow/draw weapons will let you cancel any skill that isn't an animation lock mid-cast. This is vital to prevent yourself from hitting counterattacks or skills that convert incoming damage to healing, as well as conserving skills that aren't going to land. Up next are rewards and leveling through PvP. So earlier, we talked about gold, reward tracks, and tomes of knowledge. I briefly mentioned them earlier in the video, but now we'll go more in depth. As I stated previously, PvP is extremely lucrative. Every match gives liquid currency, and there are reward tracks that give you materials and other helpful items such as tomes of knowledge to level your characters, and transmutation charges to reskin your equipment. If you want to see the reward tracks, click on the double sword icon on the top left of your screen, go down to reward tracks, and you can mouse over them to see what they give. Some reward tracks do require you to do a minimal amount of PvE to unlock them, which is worth keeping in mind. Each of the tracks also have a big reward at the end, which can range from unique skins to exotic armor boxes that you can open to select from a variety of equipment types and stats. Playing ranked will also progress chest rewards, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. The rewards get better as you go, with a very nice repeatable chest at the end that gives you a nice chunk of gold, unidentified dyes, ascended crafting materials, and more every time you complete it. You progress these chests faster the higher your rating is, and as for liquid gold, each win will net you 30 silver and each loss will give you 15. Alright, now let's talk about common misconceptions and additional points. There's really only one, but it's a mistake I see a ton of new players making. Even though stats are standardized through the amulet system, your chest, legs, and boots all give you armor value, which helps mitigate incoming power damage. You lose quite a lot if you take these off, so don't run around naked. And finally, my favorite part of the video, combat. Here are some very basic combat tips you'll want to know to start building a strong foundation. First is something new players often overlook: your auto attacks. These are extremely important for maintaining constant pressure on your enemies. Most of them do a decent amount of damage and are great to use if you don't want to cast any of your other skills. Of course, always be on the lookout for incoming attacks you'll want to avoid while you're spamming one on your enemies. The next tip revolves around landing burst skills, and it's pretty simple. Use a hard CC or immobilize into a high damage skill. If they get hit by the CC, they'll be unable to avoid the attack unless they stun break or Connie cleanse and use a defensive ability. Third, if you're hard CC'd, make sure you use a stun break, and if you have movement impairing, damaging, or disabling conditions on you, make sure you cleanse them. Don't let yourself lie on the floor for several seconds while you're knocked down, or hobble around crippled or burning to death if you can help it. Some classes even have skills that can cleanse your teammates. Which brings me to the next tip. You can see your teammates' health as well as any boons and conditions they have in the party window in the top left of your screen. If your teammates are low, you can attack the enemies hitting them to try and peel them off. Helping your teammates live will help you live and win more matches. Next is your heal skill. Every class has their own heal skill with their own base healing numbers. This also scales with your healing power stat. If you get low, maybe around 60% of your total health pool, make sure you heal to bring that back up. Low health targets are often focused, so try to avoid and recover from damage when you can. Here's how to read your user interface. Your health pool is this big red circle. The yellow bar above that is your endurance, which you can use to dodge enemy attacks. Each dodge gives you 3/4 of a second of evasion, and certain weapon skills and utilities also have ways to avoid damage. I'll also show you how to control your character and camera more easily. If you want to pan your camera around, hold left click and drag. If you want your character to turn with your camera, hold right click while you move. You can also hold left and right click at the same time if you want to make your character run forwards. Up next is targeting. You can click or press tab target to cycle through nearby enemies. If you want to detarget, simply left click in empty space. The most important combat tip of them all: try to learn the animations for each class. Becoming familiar with what your opponents have access to will help you a lot in the long run. As you progress through the ratings, you'll come across players that have a better and better understanding of what to look out for, so it's important to spend time on this if you want to get better at PvP. Now, if you find the video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to be notified the moment I release more content. I also stream live on Twitch during the week, so if you want to come hang out with the community, watch some high-level live commentary on every class, or ask me any questions you might be wondering about, click on the link in the description below, or go to twitch.tv/blindside_TV. Little extra bonus for those of you who stuck it to the end of the video. First of all, thank you. But I'm also doing some giveaways, so make sure you join the Discord. Link is in the description down below, and comment what your favorite tip was, what you'd like to see in future videos, as well as your Discord and in-game name.